the credits. I love.
Oh yeah.
What does it say? Introducing so and so, and who's the person they're introducing? Who was that?
That was Mr. Johnny Depp.
It's his first movie. It is so funny to see that guy where he is now, and to see this movie, and to see in the credits introducing Johnny Depp. Like,
the podcast you are about to listen to is an account of the movies which befell a group of horror fans. In particular, Tara Garwood and her intrepid friend, Matt Lolich. Had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, although they would have wished, to see as much of the mad and macabre as we are to see in those movies. For them, an idyllic summer movie became a nightmare, and they loved it. The movies that they watched were to lead to the creation of one of the most terrifying podcasts in the annals of American history. The Scary Movie Project.
Hey peeps, this is the Scary Movie Project, the podcast where we talk about scary movies and invade your dreams with our spoilery spoilers. I'm Tara.
and what up, y'all? I'm Matt.
That was a loud Matt today.
Yeah, that was loud. Sorry. Just making sure you guys are awake because of the movie we're talking about. I don't want you falling asleep because if Nancy doesn't wake up screaming, she won't wake up at all. 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. You know it. You love it. Let's talk about it.
And this is the beginning of our Halloween Extravaganza where we are...
I thought you were going to say it's the beginning of the end, and I was like, oh, God, no.
It's the beginning of the end, guys. No, it is the beginning of our Halloween Extravaganza. We are going to be releasing episodes weekly instead of our usual bi-weekly schedule.
Be ready.
And we're doing the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Streets.
Oh, my.
So, and this is also very special for me because I never saw Freddy when I was younger. So once we started the podcast, I said, Tara, you're going to wait. You're not going to watch it until you watch it for the podcast so that you can be like fresh eyes, totally like just never seen it before. So this was my first time watching it.
All right.
And I'm really excited to talk about it. And we have a lot of cool trivia and like behind the scenes today.
It's a good one. It's a classic for sure. So yeah, good.
Totally. So, like you said, 1984, writer-director Wes Craven, of course.
Love Wes Craven. We miss him very much. He left us too soon a few years ago, so very sad. Yeah. Yeah,
never enough movies from writer-directors like that.
No.
There's no such thing as enough. So he was inspired to write this movie by a series of articles about several Southeast Asian refugees who died in the middle of terrible nightmares, but not of heart attacks. Like, they just died.
Yeah, I heard about
Which
this.
I think is so creepy. Like, I don't think they ever figured out what actually happened to them.
I mean, you can find a cause of death, I suppose, but like, what you'll never know is what on earth was the nightmare. What could have possibly terrified somebody so
and
badly?
apparently these were like young healthy men, and they would have a nightmare and then like refuse to sleep for days.
Yeah.
And then they would finally fall asleep, and then they would die in a nightmare.
It's crazy.
That's so terrifying to me. That's the fact that this is real, like a real thing that happened is.
Yeah. I know.
Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, and you got what on earth? What was so terrifying? Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I don't want to.
No, let's not.
So let's not, because then we might die in the middle of the night screaming.
Terrible nightmare.
So this movie also, it saved New Line Cinema from bankruptcy.
Yeah, New Line Cinema is, I guess. So infamous for Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. Mm-hmm. I think for a while when I was a kid, it was like, if you saw like the New Line Cinema logo, you were like, oh, we're going to get a scary movie here. I think that kind of was like their thing.
And they actually, because this movie was such a big like hit for them, the production studio was nicknamed The House That Freddy Built.
I was going to use that line, but I couldn't remember if they had used that or not. Yeah.
Yeah, they called it The House That Freddy Built.
That's awesome.
So why don't we dive on in?
Yes, please.
We open on hands with red cuffs, making a glove with knife fingers, which was all done by their special effects artist, Charles Bellardinelli.
Okay.
If I said that right, hopefully. Because he was the only one who knew how to cut the glove and like do the blades and everything. So it's the first time we see Freddy, it's not Freddy, it's the special effects artist doing all the stuff. And also the original glove, this glove was used in the first movie, in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It was also shown in Evil Dead 2, because I guess they had like a little running thing where they would show each other's stuff in their movies.
Is it the glove that was used at the end of the final Friday when the glove comes up and pulls Jason's hockey mask? Oh, because it was lost in part.
No, yeah, because when Craven loaned it to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, to the set there, they lost it.
Okay.
But rumor has it that Robert Englund's agent ended up with it.
I was going to say, if I'm Wes Craven, I know, he didn't do all of them, whatever, but why would you give that to someone? No, that's mine. Like, you can't have this.
I'd be like, make your own.
Yeah, by then you know how popular it is. I'm not giving you this. Nope.
But, maybe it was like a friendly Hollywood gesture or something. That's
he didn't care, whatever.
So the next thing we see is this young girl who we find out later is Tina. She's running through, a dark industrial hallway. And this goat, like, pops out and scares her.
I love the goat.
And Freddy chases her, and like she runs and gets dead-ended at a fire, and she screams, and they're in like this like basement sort of boiler room with all these pipes.
You know what it reminds me? It reminds me of
steam coming out and all sorts of stuff.
It reminds me of the end of Terminator 2 when they're in that like factory,
I can see that. I can totally see that.
And like scenes from Alien 3 when they're on that prison. That just
I can totally see that
vibe from that.
So this is pretty interesting. That was all shot. All the dream boiler room footage, we'll call it, was shot in the basement of the Lincoln Heights jail in L.A. And shortly after this, it was condemned for too much asbestos.
All right, that's safe. Yeah.
So, womp womp.
Well, I'll give a quick shout too, which is a cool little fact. If you're into like where movies are shot and stuff like that, location stuff like that, which I just eat up. I love
which
that
we
stuff.
know Matt is.
Please look up a gentleman by the name of Sean Clark. He is a horror aficionado in the horror universe. He's made a couple behind the scenes things about where these movies were filmed. He did a great one on Halloween. He did one on The Exorcist that I'm proud to have helped him out with. And he did one for Nightmare on Elm Street. So he drove around LA to do that. So look him up, find him on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. He's awesome. Check out his cool stuff that he's done for these. So he did one on that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So after all this, she gets in a fire, she screams, she wakes up. It was only a dream.
Or so.
But her sleep shirt is ripped. Yes. And I love her mom comes in and she says, she looks at her shirt. She says, either you got to cut your fingernails or quit that kind of dreaming, one or the other. I'm like, ooh, Mom, all right, with the lines.
That was good.
So Tina was played by a woman, Amanda Weiss, or Weiss?
I don't know much about her.
I'm going to say Weiss because it's W-Y-S-S, so I'm going to go with Weiss.
All right.
Amanda Weiss was handing out candy at her mom's house on the Halloween after the film's release. And she saw a ton of trick-or-treaters dressed as Freddy and stuff. And so she eventually, she decided to tell one of them that she played Tina in the movie, and he totally didn't believe her.
Of course not. I wouldn't have.
He's like, no, you didn't.
Kids don't believe that stuff. No.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, like, these are young adults playing, like, young teens.
Well, that's every movie and TV show ever. These people are like 30 and they're playing like 17-year-olds.
Right.
Yes, right.
So I think these were all like 18, 19, 20.
Okay.
But they were still like Tina was supposed to be like 15.
Oh, yeah. So you know what I love the most about when the beginning of it, right? Even before we get to that first scene, the credits. I love.
Oh yeah.
What does it say? Introducing so and so, and who's the person they're introducing? Who was that?
That was Mr. Johnny Depp.
It's his first movie. It is so funny to see that guy where he is now, and to see this movie. And to see in the credits introducing Johnny Depp. Like, wow. I'm telling you, for all y'all that don't know out there.
And he is so adorable.
Glen, right? Isn't that his character, Glen?
Glen, yep.
So many big-time movie stars have come from these horror films. I consider you the list forever and ever. I mean, him, really quickly. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. What's her name? We talked about Patricia Arquette. She's in Nightmare on Elm Street and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, right? Isn't she in the Dream Warriors? I think that was one of her first
I don't know
flicks,
yet because I haven't seen it.
That was one of her first flicks. What's her name? Who was in The Ring? Naomi Watts. She was in one of the Children of the Corn, I think.
Well, another one in this who's older but is Lynn Shay.
Lynn Shay plays the teacher
who ended up having a huge role in the Insidious movies in several other movies, but she's the teacher and she was the producer's sister.
Okay.
The producer, I want to say Robert Shay.
Bob Shay.
Yeah, she's his sister.
That's right. Yep. Okay.
So I was very excited to see her name pop up in the credits. I was like, "Oh, Lynn Shay, I love her."
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it's just she's much younger in the film, but yeah, she still looks the same though. I think.
Oh yeah, you can tell it's her absolutely.
But yeah, that's so cool to me to watch those folks that are such big shots, whatever you want nowadays, and this is where they started, and what they thought were crappy horror films that no one will ever watch. Well, not so much.
Yeah. So then we get the girls on the sidewalk jumping rope and chanting the Freddy song.
All right, now you got to sing it for me.
All right. I can do it. Hold on.
All right, you got to get it right.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, get a crucifix. 7, 8, better stay up late.
Got it.
9, 10, never sleep again.
Very good.
Yay!
Okay. Yeah, it takes a while to learn
I'm so
that
proud
one.
of myself.
That's a good one. Nursery rhyme. I'm going to sing that to my...
I didn't even practice that one.
So
I
when
just remembered it.
When my niece is born shortly, I'm going to sing that to her when she's a child and just scar her for life, basically.
Yes. Definitely.
Maybe not.
Teach it to her so she'll teach all her little friends.
Yeah, I might get in a lot of
trouble.
trouble.
And then they'll be singing it and the adults will be like...
I might get in a lot of trouble for that one. So, yeah.
That would be great, though. I might have to steal that for my nieces.
Yeah, you got to get them going early.
Oh, yeah. So apparently also Heather Langenkamp, who plays Nancy, her boyfriend apparently wrote the Freddy song.
Huh. Okay.
So word on the street.
All right. It's a
is
great
that Heather Langenkamp's boyfriend.
Whoever wrote it, I love it. Thank you for doing it.
It's really good. It's actually really creepy.
It is.
Whenever it's
honestly,
a perfect tie-in to what you find out later about the parents and everything. Have this as a nursery rhyme.
You know what? Whenever I'm at a park or I'm at a you walk by a school or whatever, or playground or something, and you see kids with rope. That is the first jumping rope. That's the first thing I think of.
Of course it is.
And so terrible.
Speaking of school. Tina then walks to school with her friends Nancy, Glen, and Rod, and she tells them about
this is supposed to be in some suburban Ohio town, right, or something.
Yeah, well, apparently in the first movie they sort of made it like they didn't say where it was. They also apparently never say the name Elm Street in the first movie.
No, they don't. And but the problem is they show so many dang palm trees that it's like, okay, well, it's obviously
but
LA.
so I think it was it was later on that they decided it was in Ohio.
Whereas Halloween, because they made sure it's set in a Midwestern town, and they did a pretty good job of hiding the palm trees because they shot it in Pasadena. You can see a few of them, but anyway, whatever.
So they originally in the first movie they did not have a space set for it. They were just like it is in
anywhere
a general American town.
Bobby teenager from any town USA.
Yes, any town USA. Perfect.
The cool breezes of any town USA.
So now that we've met Nancy, Glenn, and Rod, do you want to know who could have played them?
Speaking of meeting them, I'll just say I have met Heather Langenkamp, and she's awesome. And she's very nice.
Very cool.
If you get a chance to meet her. She's very nice.
Yay!
And she's a big shot. I mean, she did. She's like a producer. She helped produce the what's the Freddy one where she plays herself, the one that's much later on, the New Nightmare.
Oh, New Nightmare. Okay.
She helped produce that. Yeah, she's like a mogul.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Go, Heather.
And back in the day, you saw her on TGIF on Just the 10 of Us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I hit the Wayback Machine for you.
Oh, you did. You did. All right. So who else could have played Nancy?
There was who was cast?
Do you want to know? Yep.
I'd love to.
So these
Late-
three
early
women
80s.
all auditioned to play Nancy.
Early 80s.
Jennifer Grey,
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Demi Moore,
Oh, I couldn't see that.
and Courtney Cox.
All right, I can see Courtney Cox or what's her face. I don't know if I could see Demi Moore doing it though.
They all auditioned to play the role.
All right, and she got it though. Okay.
And so for Glenn, we could have, instead of Johnny Depp, we could have had Charlie Sheen,
Oh God.
John Cusack,
Okay.
Brad Pitt,
Oh Lord.
Kiefer Sutherland,
Well, he was great in whatchamacallit, Lost Boys, of course.
or Nick Cage.
Oh wow. Okay. That's hilarious.
And for Rod, we could have had Ralph Macchio.
Oh boy. Well, I think he did his own work pretty well in Karate Kid, so we'll leave
I
that
feel
alone.
like for Ralph
can see any one of those
Macchio,
guys
Rod would have sort of ruined his good boy image.
Probably. Well, wait, what year
You
was
know?
What year was Karate Kid though?
I'm not sure.
It was after this, I think, though.
It was after this?
I'm pretty
so
sure
it
it was-
might have made it harder for him to get that role if he had already played a role where he had played this like kind of
Don't-
jerky,
No, you don't want to be
cocky
like
guy.
You don't want to be like Linda Blair and get typecast and never get to work again, or whatever. So yeah, okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So they walk to school. Tina tells them about her dream, and then that night, Tina is hanging out with Nancy and Glenn at her house, at Tina's house. And Glenn, I love this. Glenn's on the phone trying to convince his
yeah.
mom that he's staying at his aunt's
Yes.
house. So he's like playing, he's playing like all this like highway noise or something.
He's
I
got
think,
a
to begin
tape.
with.
He's got a tape on his '80s boombox. It's the size of like a desk, and it's
Yes.
a tape of airport sounds.
Yeah,
And he's
airport. That's
trying
it.
to tell his mom he's at the airport with his uncle or something. But then on the tape is like a car crash and people screaming, and he can't turn it off in time. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, and then he's like, no, that's just an accident outside.
it's all right,
no,
Mom, I'll call the
it's
police.
Okay. Sorry,
I'm
Mom.
fine.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll call
fine.
the police. It's cool.
Yeah,
Bye.
That was pretty good.
That was really cute. That's one thing I liked about this movie. I feel like all the four teens that we are introduced to have such believable relationships with each other.
Well, that's the hardest thing about these movies is like, do we know if these kids are going to get killed? Do we care about them ahead of time? Do we care about them at all?
Well,
right.
this made me care about them.
There you go.
Like,
That's good.
I enjoyed them, even like with Tina and Glenn and their like back and forth, like fighting with each other and their sort of love-hate romance and like
Good.
the young love with Nancy and Glenn. Or later on, I think they're on the phone and he says, "That's what I love about you." It's like, aw, and they're like little 15 or 16-year-olds.
Right.
And it's so cute.
I mean, we only have, 90 minutes or so to get to know these people. Sometimes really only 60 minutes, honestly. And it's like, okay, how do we do this quickly, right? How do you
Yeah,
care?
and sometimes I see these things, especially in horror movies, where I feel like you didn't make me care about anybody. Like you were just there to kill people, and I didn't like get to love any of the characters. And this was one of my complaints about Children of the Corn, right?
Yeah.
The two main characters, they are married. They seem to be kind of newlyweds. And they just seem like they hate each other and they shouldn't be married and they should never be anywhere around each other. So they didn't make me like them.
Aren't a lot of married couples that way, though? Let's be honest, right?
I don't know. Most of the married couples I know are pretty cool together.
I was just making a joke, but I mean, whatever. No, okay.
Yeah, I've known a few. I've definitely known a couple married couples who are like that.
People argue. Well, mostly
sorry.
older. I think it's older people that really argue. But yeah, believable. Like it's very easy to make you hate a character because that's done also on purpose. So you're glad they die.
Sure,
Like,
right.
yeah. How do I like the person? Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so I really felt like they made me like these kids, and they
Sure.
and it, even watching it as like a total grown up, like it made me remember like being that age and like,
fun.
oh, I knew that kid. I
fun.
remember Rod. I know that kid.
And even though this is 1984, this predates you and I as teenagers, obviously. But yeah, you kind of it brings you back sort of, and you kind of can adapt to like that time period, I guess, sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so that night, while Tina's hanging out with Nancy and Glenn, they find out that both of the girls had dreams with Freddy in them.
I had the same dream you did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they hear something outside and they go to look, and Glenn acts like all tough and like little baby Johnny Depp like trying to act tough is so cute.
I'm gonna come and knock your heads off or so. Yeah, I forget.
I'm gonna knock your block off or something like that. Yeah. So he acts all tough, and then he gets tackled by Rod.
Sure does.
And Rod, like, is like, yeah, me and Tina get the master bedroom. You guys can have the rest of the house. And he is so rapey, and it's supposed to be in good fun.
He's creepy.
Like, this is the 80s, guys. This is supposed to be funny. And this is a 15-year-old girl with a guy who looks like he's a few years older than her.
He sure does.
Like basically pulling her into the house like he's going to take her and have sex with her.
Yeah.
And he does. I mean, they have sex, but it's
they do.
Perfectly consensual.
We'll get to that.
We're about to be at it. It's perfectly consensual. They have sex while Glenn and Nancy try to sleep.
Yeah.
And poor Glenn, you see him like looking like, oh God.
Right. I love that.
And then they have a little talk after they have sex, and he says something about, well, no more fighting, and she's like, no. And so, I mean, I didn't realize it until sort of that moment, but I guess they have been boyfriend and girlfriend. They had just been fighting. Mm-hmm. So they have made up now, and Tina and Rod are talking, and it turns out Rod had a nightmare himself. He doesn't say what was in his nightmare, just that, boys are allowed to have nightmares too. And then that night, Tina is woken up by what sounds like pebbles against the window. She looks outside. She doesn't see anyone. I think, doesn't one of the pebbles break the window?
I don't remember.
I can't remember if it's that moment where that happens or not, but she looks outside. She doesn't see anyone. And then she hears someone whisper her name. Right? Tina. Mm-hmm. And so she is gonna go outside, but meantime, hands and a face push out of the wall above Nancy's bed.
So very cool special effects.
Which actually, Nancy is sleeping in Tina's bed because Tina had the crucifix earlier. So that was done by just stretching a sheet. It's so low budget. Stretching a sheet of spandex across a hole in the wall,
pushing through it
and pushing against it. Sure. And it was Freddy in that moment was played by the special effects designer Jim Doyle.
Okay.
So, I thought that looked really cool. And all it was a sheet of spandex. Yep.
Easy peasy, man.
So easy.
Yeah.
So then Nancy, face happens. She wakes up and she gets the crucifix that Tina has next to her bed, and she hangs it up on the wall there. And then Tina goes outside in her very short sleeve shirt.
Yes.
And she's following the voice, and Freddy is there in the alley with these super long arms.
Yeah, they just keep growing. He scratches them across the wall.
Yeah, which now that was done, again, so low budget, so simple. They had someone on each side of the alley.
Arms,
with I'm demonstrating in my doorway.
Like a foam arm or something,
They had,
right?
they had arms attached to him, and each person on each side of the alley had a fishing pole.
It's just puppet. It's just
so they could just pull
the
arms out with a fishing pole.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Simple. Very practical.
Yeah,
I love it.
so simple. Yeah. So Freddy chases Tina, and then I love this. He says, "Watch this," and cuts off his own fingers.
His finger off. Right.
And it's like green that comes out.
Yes, it's green. It's definitely green.
And then we see Tina thrashing around in the bed, and her stomach is scratched, and she flies around the room, and she's flying around the room, and her head whaps Rod in the face, and he gets knocked out.
Yeah, it knocks him out.
And then she's just dead.
So that scene is intense. I mean, that's it's bloody. It's brutal. It's nasty. Yeah. And she falls into a pool. It makes this splashing sound. So we're talking about effects. You probably read this too. I think they built a set and they just turned it around.
They had a rotating room. Yep,
so
they had a rotating room.
So it looked like she was on the ceiling. Pretty crazy. Yep. Pretty cool, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they had to so they have to lock the camera to the floor on the set so that it has the same perspective the whole time.
It doesn't move.
And I guess the camera operator had to be strapped into his to his thing. And for Rod to be down there when he's on the floor and she's flying around in the ceiling, they had to gel back his hair so that it wouldn't stand up because he was upside down, standing there.
It's simple, but it's not, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that must have taken a lot. That was not just hey, we got a fishing pole and some foam.
Right. That was
that
definitely
must have taken a lot to do.
And you really can't. I mean, it's great. It looks like she's crawling on a ceiling. It's awesome.
Yeah. And then so she's dead, and Nancy and Glenn run in, and Rod has gone out the window.
Yep.
And Nancy's dad, it turns out, is a police officer.
Sure is.
So she and her mom are at the precinct, and they're talking to the police about what happened. And then the next day, Nancy is leaving the house to go to school, and her mom doesn't want her to go, but she says, "Oh, I'd rather be at school keeping busy."
Right.
Her mom's like, "Okay, come right home after." So Nancy walks to school, and Rod jumps out from some trees to talk to her and try to tell her he didn't do it. And her dad shows up, and Nancy gets in front of Rod and stops her dad from shooting Rod while Rod's trying to run away. But more police get there, and they arrest him. And it turns out that Nancy's dad was following her to catch Rod, because I guess he had a feeling Rod would try to contact her.
He's a good cop.
So, yeah, but she's kind of mad about that. Yeah. And then we come to, yay, Lynn Shay as the teacher.
So, I don't know how you feel about it, but when that scene where they're dollying across the classroom, I get I feel like it's a total steal from Halloween. In the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is in the classroom that day, and she looks out the window and sees Michael Myers. I feel like it's not a steal, but it's like an homage to, I love John Carpenter, maybe Wes Craven thought, and I'm going to just kind of do my scene like that. I don't know. Felt like that.
I can definitely see that. But so the teacher talks about about Shakespeare. They're reading Shakespeare, and she talks about how what you see isn't always real. Nancy falls asleep in class, and she sees Tina in a body bag in the school hallway.
Getting dragged away.
And then, Tina's body is just dragged out of sight by nobody.
That was a creepy scene.
And then I love this. The hall monitor, in this girl in a red and green sweater is like,
Freddy sweater.
"Where's your pass?
You're going to need a hall pass. Screw your hall pass.
Screw your hall pass." And of course, it's Freddy.
Of course.
As this hall monitor in the dream. Yeah. So Nancy, in her dream, she goes into the basement, and Freddy's hiding in the boiler room, and then he steps out. And again, why does he do this? He cuts open his own chest, and green goo and worms come out, and then he just comes after her.
Yeah.
So apparently, Wes Craven, originally for his face, he wanted pus running out of all of Freddy's sores, and he wanted to have some skull showing and teeth showing through his jaw. But the makeup artist convinced him that wouldn't be convincing on an actor, and that a puppet would look weird with the live actors. So they didn't do it. But I guess this is the shot where he got his goo.
There you go.
The
goo shot.
He got his goo in this shot, at least. So Nancy puts her arm in a hot pipe, burns it, and wakes up screaming.
We're going crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and the teacher's like, "I'll call your mom," but Nancy's like, "No, I'll just go straight home." And the teacher's kind of like, "Okay." Nancy's arm we see outside is burned.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. So, we already know, this is doing things to them in real life, right? When something happens in the dream, it's happening to them in real life. So she goes to the jail to talk to Rod. And Rod tells her what really happened, and that it looked like 4 invisible razors were cutting Tina at the same time. And this is when we find out Rod's nightmare was about Freddy too. So he's also he's in the Freddy gang. And then that night, Nancy is soaking in the tub, and she's singing the Freddy song. And she starts to fall asleep. And this gloved hand, it's iconic. I've seen this shot before.
Yeah.
The gloved hand comes up between her legs out of the bathtub.
And can be interpreted in many, many ways.
Many ways. Some of them
yes,
a little more disturbing than others.
It's up to you. You make your decision on it. I think it's a great scene. But
it's
definitely.
It's also
it's iconic.
Yeah, it's also kind of funny though.
Yeah, it is.
It's a little bit woo.
So,
but it's also funny.
I'll just say, there's been plenty of films that have scenes happen in a bathtub like that. I don't take baths. I haven't taken a bath in a very, 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 very long time. Maybe it's because of movies I watch, but I don't know. I get that grossed out kind of feeling with drains and tubs kind of thing. So,
yeah.
I think so for people that freaks them out. That's a good scene too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gets even better because her mom knocks on the door and wakes her up, and the hand sinks back down. But then she falls asleep again, and she gets pulled under the water.
Yeah.
And that shot was using a bottomless tub.
Sure.
So they actually put the bathroom set, they built it over a swimming pool.
Yeah, sure.
And that was a stunt woman, but that let them like really have it like dark and look like she was in nowhere.
It's awesome.
Sort of when she gets pulled under. And then her mom, I love this because my mom would have done this. Her mom gets the little key like from the top of the door and unlocks the bathroom door. You know, they have those little keys that are like, it's basically just like a pin. It pushes in and it pushes the pop locks out.
Okay, yeah.
So her mom gets one of those and unlocks the bathroom door, and Nancy's like, I'm fine, I just fell asleep. And yeah, my mom totally would have done that. My mom had a thing about locking doors, especially bathroom doors. She was convinced that you were going to fall off the toilet, crack your head on the bathtub, and then like drown in an inch of water.
You know what? I mean, think about, she's a parent, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
So think about, though, the things that in the movies that we've seen, just real quick. Look at like Psycho. One of the most famous scenes ever is a murder inside of a shower. Spooky scenes like with the hand like in a bathtub. And, to be real, people slit their wrists and kill themselves in tubs.
Well, yeah.
Like bathrooms are places where like injuries and death like happen. Yeah.
That's true. But I always felt like my mom was like a little bit taking it overboard. But
I know.
But I was also young and she was a grown up. So
people slip in showers and hurt their backs and crack their heads
That's
open.
true.
And yeah, like for real.
That's true. That's true. You and my mom would get along on that.
Well, safety first, right? So.
Yeah. So okay. So now, what?
No, I was gonna say locked doors in a situation like that. I don't have an issue with that. I think that's fair to to say.
I feel like when you got to do some personal business, locking a door is acceptable.
You know what? Fair enough. But you know what? Have the trust. Have the trust that someone's in there. I'm not going to bother them. But just don't lock the door. Whatever.
That's true. That's true.
If it's like my 8-year-old kid, like close the door, but just please don't lock it. Like if something happens.
Yeah. When you're 8, but when you're like 16, 17.
Yeah, she is like a teenager. That's true.
It's okay, like let me lock the door. I need a little privacy in here.
I know people don't like slamming doors, and I know people don't like locking doors. So that's a thing.
Yeah. So now it's time for bed, and Nancy takes some medicine to stay awake, and she's watching horror movies in her bedroom. It's called like it is literally called like Stay Awake.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't say no dose, I'm sure.
Right,
so.
Right. Do they still make that? No dose.
I don't know. I don't know if it's legal to make.
I was gonna say I don't even make that stuff anymore.
Yeah, I have no idea. So she's watching horror movies in her bedroom, and Glen sneaks in through the window to check on her. She hasn't slept yet, and I love it. She says, "Oh God, I look 20 years old."
Yes.
Like that's so old. That's ancient.
If that's so old, I've been dead for quite some time then.
Right? I've been dead for a long time. If that's the case,
I'm quite a corpse at this point. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, Heather Langenkamp was like 19 or 20 years old.
I was gonna say she was 21 or something, right? Exactly. That's so funny.
Yeah.
But that is such a teenage thing to say, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I look like I'm 20. Right. Yeah.
Oh God, I look like I'm 20.
Right.
Ugh.
Like it's like 20 is just so far away.
Yeah. So Nancy asks Glen to stand guard for her so she can go look for someone in the dream, and then she turns the lights out. We see her come out of the house, and it's kind of obvious that it's like the dream world now. Mm-hmm. And she walks through the front yard and down the street. She checks that Glen is still watching, and I love this. She's like, "Are you still there? Are you still watching?" And he peeks out from behind like a lamppost or something, and he's like, "I am. I'm here." Yeah. And then she's like, "Okay, good." And he pops back in. So it's like he's just like popping into the dream for a second.
Right. Dual realities or something, right?
Yeah, and so she goes to the precinct, to the jail, and she sees Freddy in Rod's jail cell. And she's like, oh, crap. And then Tina is there all of a sudden, and a centipede comes out of her mouth.
Oh, yeah. That was
and,
gross.
like, she's got centipedes around her feet.
Well, she's dead.
Which I read a trivia that was like, and Tina was very afraid the girl who played Tina was very afraid to do this. She was uncomfortable with the idea of all these bugs around her feet. And I'm like, who wouldn't be? Like, how is that trivia? Nobody would be comfortable with centipedes all over you.
That's definitely not trivia. I mean, I don't like I'm not afraid of them, but if I had to do that with a ton of them, I probably wouldn't like it very much.
No,
Yeah,
no, thank you very much.
No, not really.
So then Freddy shows up and he chases Nancy. She gets back home and she tries to go upstairs, but the steps are like all gooey.
Yeah, she falls. That's correct. I love that. She falls through them. Yeah.
Which I think they either did with like pancake mix or oatmeal, I think they said. Like
Yeah,
there was like some variation on what they actually
That's
used,
pretty
but basically it
cool.
was
I'd like to
something
see
like that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Which
yeah.
makes sense because the stairs were already beige.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it just looks just like stairs until she steps in it and gets her foot stuck.
That's pretty cool.
So
That'd be a good gag to do to somebody on like April Fool's Day, like an old staircase. If you could somehow like make that work, that would be hilarious.
if you could replace steps with gooey stuff and then replace it back without it costing a ton of money, that would be really funny.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. Anyway, it'd probably be.
But
very
I
hard
feel
to
like
do.
that would be so much effort.
It would probably be a lot of it. You'd have to know what you're doing. It might work though. You never know.
Yeah, it could work. I mean, I just feel like I would want a professional, at least to put the stairs back as stairs again later.
Yeah, like an old house, like a basement or something, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. If you could like set it up so that like the step would be solid and then you would like flip a switch and it would be like crank and then the like it would turn or the solid part would pull back and the pudding or whatever would be underneath.
Or you could even just cover it with like a
Yeah, exactly.
right. Yeah. That'd be funny.
Like
yeah,
you could cover
you
it.
You need to know what you're doing, but it'd be an interesting gag to do to somebody.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. We're going to try it. No, we're
may
not.
happen.
But it is a
one
cool
day.
idea. So she finally, the steps are all gooey, but she finally makes it up to her bedroom. And Freddy crashes through the mirror and her alarm wakes her up just in time.
That's a cool shot. He flies through like that. That's great.
Yeah. And this apparently may have been the first movie to ever use a breakaway mirror.
Okay. Candy glass or something.
So there you go. Yeah, I think they call it candy glass. So Glen, of course, fell asleep.
Of course.
Surprise, surprise.
Dumbass Glenn.
Glenn,
God damn it, Glenn.
Johnny Depp, we're disappointed in you.
If you're listening, come on.
You are not keeping it up.
Come on, Eddie Rebel.
Yeah, really.
Did you catch that line right there, by the way?
Wait, when was that?
So Johnny Depp played Eddie Rebel in Tom Petty's video Into the Great Wide Open.
Okay.
I'm calling him Eddie Rebel. And we can reference him as different characters throughout this episode.
Oh God.
So there's your first one. Eddie
Come on,
Rebel.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Captain Jack. There you go. Yeah.
So
Nancy's
mom.
Dean Corso from the movie.
We love that movie.
We love. I know.
Ninth Gate is so good.
I need to watch that again. I haven't watched it in a while.
Pardon me while I just sit here and think about Ninth Gate for a minute. Oh, that's such a good movie.
I guarantee it will be on Sci-Fi at some point next month, so I can't wait. Yes.
I love that movie. But this is a good movie too, so let's keep talking about this movie.
Sorry.
Nancy's mom calls out and she comes in to check on her, and Glenn like hides outside the window on the trellis, which my husband kept saying, oh, so he's barefoot on that trellis? Yeah. Like, that's comfortable.
Well,
Kids, man. Kids and seeing their girlfriends.
That's right.
So he hides outside the window while Nancy's mom comes in to talk, and then I think it's is it the same? It must be the next day. Nancy and Glenn go to the precinct to see. No, it must be that night. It's that night. Nancy and Glenn go to the precinct to see Rod, to check on Rod. And they're trying to get let in to go back there and talk to him with the guy on desk. And meanwhile, we see Rod's bed sheet is like twining up his body and around his neck. And Nancy's dad ends up being there, and she convinces him to go check on Rod. But by the time they get there, Rod has been hung by the bed sheet.
And I thought that was actually kind of a believable scene. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it worked.
The being hung?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, as much as any of the other kills worked, this kill worked. Like, they're all a little, like, goofy, but they're fun. And they work in the world of the movie.
Yes.
They totally work.
I just like those kind of scenes where it's something so silly, making it believable.
Yeah, and it turns into part of why the parents don't really believe any of this stuff, because it looks like he killed his girlfriend and then killed himself.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Like, that is what it looks like to the unbeliever.
Yes, non-believers.
The non-believers, heathens. Outlander. Oh, that's twice we've referenced that movie.
Your favorite movie.
Oh, my favorite.
I like it.
We've talked about one of my favorites and one of my least favorites.
I like it.
So dumb. Okay, so...
And by the way, out there, fans, Tara still has not been challenged to watch all of them yet. So.
Oh, you have to keep bringing that up, don't you?
I haven't mentioned it in a while. So.
Yes, I appreciate that. I do not appreciate you mentioning it now, though. Look, I'm on the Freddy train right now, okay? I have a lot to watch with that. Guys, do not challenge me.
You got a lot of
stops.
stops.
Do not challenge me right
now. There are a lot of stops on the Freddy train. You got a while to go.
There are. I got a ways to go on this one. So at Rod's funeral, Nancy tells her parents that someone else killed Tina. And she tells them what Freddy looks like. And her parents are like, they kind of look like stricken. They're like, oh. But nothing like comes of it. They're just, you just see their faces are like, oh shit.
Right.
And then Nancy's mom takes her to a center for sleep disorders. And while Nancy is like going to sleep, her mom tells the doctor that ever since her friend's murder, she thinks her dreams are real. So Nancy starts dreaming, and I love it. They're like watching the thing. They're like, oh, it's a good dream. See, it's at about 0.3 and like 0.5 to 0.6 is a bad dream.
Normal teenage dreams, yeah.
Yeah, normal teenage good dream. And then she starts jerking around the bed, and the guy's like, something's wrong. It never gets this high.
Nah.
And they wake her up, and she has a scratch on her arm, and she's got Freddy's hat.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I brought something out of my dream. Yeah, it's his fedora. I just said hat, but yeah, you're right. It's a fedora. Fedoras are cooler than just hats.
Yeah, it's okay.
So she managed to bring it out of her dream because she was holding it when she woke up. And the next morning, Nancy comes into the kitchen and she's drinking coffee, which her mom is like, stop drinking coffee.
Right.
And she tells her mom that Rod didn't kill Tina. He didn't hang himself. It was the guy in her dreams.
Yeah.
And she found the man's name in the fedora. And
now,
it says...
This is the way I always reference him, too. Go ahead and say his name how she says it.
It says Fred Krueger.
I always call him, just for fun, I always call him Fred Krueger. That's what I say, too.
Fred Krueger. Well, apparently in the first movie they do, and then in the other movies they just start calling him Freddy.
He's just Freddy, but I always like to call him Fred Krueger, yes.
So I've been calling him Freddy this whole time because even though I've never seen the movies, it's so permeated our culture that I know Freddy.
But that's his name. I mean, that's
just
fine.
like I already knew the nursery rhyme. Like
That's right. Yeah.
It's just part of our pop culture.
It's so part of it, without even seeing it. That's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. So she tells her mom that his name is Fred Krueger and asks her mom who he is. And her mom won't admit to knowing him at first. But when she does, she says, well, he's dead and it's only a nightmare. And Nancy gets mad. She storms out of the house. So, or are you going to say something? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm gonna wait. I'm sorry.
Okay. Hold it then.
I will.
So Nancy now is hanging out with Glen. I guess this must be like after school or something. And she's reading a book on booby traps and anti-personnel devices.
How about that? They're like eating a sandwich on a bridge somewhere. It's like, where is what's going on?
And he's like, interesting book.
All right.
So she heads home, and her parents have put her mom, rather, because I guess her parents, I don't know if they're together or if they're just
they're
okay.
Divorced, yes.
And her mom, we didn't mention this before, but her mom drinks a lot.
Oh, she's a booze hound.
Yeah, her mom, she's a booze hound. There's
have we gotten to the scene yet where she hides the bottle of liquor inside the linen closet?
I don't know.
Like, if that's like there's that great scene where she opens the door to look out, and her mom is just standing there, and she opens the linen closet, all the towels, just pulls out a giant bottle of liquor and just downs it.
I don't remember where in the movie that happens. I remember it happening, but I don't remember where it happens.
It's just so funny. I love it.
Well, so Nancy heads home. They've put bars on the windows, taken down the rose trellis that Glen was using to sneak into Nancy's window. So she's got major security now.
Because you can do that. Because you can do that in like a day, right?
Right. And her mom's just like, it's security.
Yeah.
And then she takes her down to the basement and she tells her about Fred Krueger, that he killed at least 20 kids in the neighborhood. He was caught, but set free on a technicality, and the parents found him in a boiler room and burned him alive. And Mom still has his knife glove, and she shows it to Nancy, and she tells her, it's okay now, you can sleep. So I thought this was interesting. Freddy was originally supposed to be a child molester, not just a child killer. But there was a series of child molestations in California around the time of production, and they didn't want to get accused of exploiting it.
I did not know that.
So that's why they made him a child murderer instead. But then in the 2010 remake, they went back to the original saying he was a child molester.
So I'm kind of glad you brought it up because we can mention it right now. So yeah, the remake, I've seen it. I think it's not too bad. What I take the most out of it is the fact that any story that we see of some character or something in a movie, we always want to know more about that. Where is the backstory of this, right? So I really like that in the remake that they did this and they went to a backstory and they showed us scenes that they shot of Krueger when he was, what was he, the janitor or something? He was working at the school and he had this great relationship with the kids, and we find out what happened. So I thought that was awesome. I like that.
So if you like the backstory, you will love this. So, oh my God, why did my brain just blank on who played Freddy Krueger?
Oh, Robert Englund?
Robert Englund, thank you. Robert Englund said that he had his own sort of backstory, like backstory for the character. And there was this kid he was in school with one year who, on Valentine's Day, everybody got like Valentines, and this one kid didn't get any. And he said he always imagined that was the kid who grew up to be Freddy Krueger.
Or Jeffrey Dahmer, I would say, yeah.
Right? Which I'm like, that's so sad. What if that poor kid like hears your interview and is like, that was me?
Well, it's going to be like that. Yeah, he'd be like, what's his face from Billy Madison? Yeah, it's going to come get you.
Yeah. So her mom says it's okay now, you can sleep, he's dead, but Nancy doesn't believe her. So Nancy calls Glenn and she asks him to help her nail Freddy when she brings him out of her dream. They're going to meet on her porch at midnight, and she tells him not to fall asleep before then.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Exactly. Nancy sits in her room and she's chugging coffee and she's popping the stay awake pills.
And she's been awake for 8 days or something at this point now, right? Something like that, 8-9 days.
I don't think it's been that long. I think it's been 6 or 7.
Okay.
I think at one point she says it's been like 7 days.
I definitely don't want to be awake for
and
7
she's
days.
like, it's okay because somebody stayed awake for 12.
Yeah. I definitely don't want to be awake forever for 7 days, so.
No.
That would be terrible.
I don't want to be awake for 2 days.
No. I've been awake
I want to sleep every night. Although I've done it for 48-hour film projects, I have definitely not slept for 2 days. But
I have definitely done 24 hours or more. I've done that multiple times before, whether it's travel or just when you were a kid, it was cool to stay up like for a day, but it's not good for you.
Yeah, I've done like a good 36 or 40, something like that for like 48-hour film project, but that's it.
I think I did 30 when I went to Europe. When my time changed, I ended up being up for 30 hours. Ooh. But after that, you crash and you're back. But yeah. Imagine. But that's like for a reason. Imagine like being so scared you can't go to bed. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. And I love this part. So she's popping the stay awake pills, chugging the coffee, and her mom comes in and gets her in bed and takes away like the coffee and the pills and everything. And she reaches under her bed and she had an electric coffee pot full of coffee hidden under her bed.
That's a good place for that. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's just so funny.
You don't keep your coffee under your bed?
No. Well, and we don't use an electric coffee pot. We are French press people.
But look, then you can just wake up. You don't even have to get out of bed. Your coffee is right there.
It's right there. Like you don't even have to wake up before you get your coffee.
You couldn't possibly be any lazier.
So smart.
Except for burning your rug or your bed because it's plugged in. But
True. So Glen's mom and dad are I didn't mention earlier that Nancy and Glen live right across the street from each other. So they can like see each other in the window when they're talking on the phone. It's really cute and all.
Oh yeah, classic teenage stuff.
Yeah, and there's it's in this last phone call when she's telling him meet her at midnight and he says that's what I love about you line. Like it's so cute.
Yes, I like that.
But Glen's mom and dad are on their porch talking.
We like these little teenage romance in these movies, don't we? We're suckers for that, aren't we?
Yes, I'm a total sucker for that. You liked it in The Babysitter a lot too.
That's good.
Yeah, we're suckers for a good teenage romance.
Well, I mean, because it takes you back, I think, to to a moment. And everybody had maybe a moment like that, so it's fun. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's an innocence to it that then when you put that in a horror movie, it's such a contrast to the terrifying things that are happening. That there's this like innocence of this young love.
Yes, young love.
Yeah, it's just cute.
Yeah.
So Glen's mom and dad stand on their porch talking, and Glen's dad does not want him to hang around with Nancy anymore.
Terrible actor.
And Nancy's mom is still awake too, so they're like can't get out of their houses to meet each other yet. Then Nancy calls Glen's house, but he's asleep because he fell asleep.
Sure did.
Because he glenned. We're gonna make it a verb. He glenned and fell asleep.
Damn you, Johnny.
Good job, Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
And his dad hangs up on her and takes the phone off the hook so she can't call again.
So that was like real. People used to do that, didn't they?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure my parents had done that when I was a kid. I don't want your call, so I'm just going to take the phone off the hook, which to me is like...
Nowadays, we're so connected.
It's
we're
dangerous
like,
almost to me in a way. Like, emergencies happen. Like, I don't know if whatever.
Definitely. Yeah.
And his dad, I'm sorry. He just... You just got to be tough with these kids. Like, really?
Right.
Like,
You just
this
gotta be tough with
guy
these kids.
is the worst. He's terrible. I'm sorry.
He's
Terrible.
blustering.
I like that. That was great. A very good term. He was a day player for X amount of rate for a few hours, and he was out of there. Like that.
Oh, and he was going to make a statement on that.
Yeah, he was
going
to be a jerk. Yes. And hey, you know what?
gonna-
We're sitting here spending the last 10 to 15 seconds of our lives talking about him here, so I guess
There
it
you
worked.
go. He was great. He was great.
It worked.
But so Nancy picks up the phone again because she's going to call again. She hears scraping. She yanks the phone out of the wall, but then it rings.
I love that.
And when she answers, a tongue comes out of the receiver and licks her, or out of the, out of the receiver end, out of the
headset
end, and licks her mouth.
And isn't that when he says, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy"? Right?
I think so. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, Freddy.
Yeah. Yuck.
Gross. Yeah, pretty gross.
So we cut to Glen asleep. And a hand pulls him and his TV into the bed, and then sprays blood all over the room.
These deaths in bedrooms are just
I feel like
whoa in this movie, right?
Well, oh yeah, but I feel like it was a missed opportunity to also belch out the TV.
Good like social commentary moment or something.
I feel like
that.
It should have been like I just feel like it would have been a funny button, like
yes,
blood spraying everywhere, and then like the TV goes plunk.
Something so horrible, and then like, oh, this kind of like lighthearted moment. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that was a missed opportunity.
But yeah, that it just blows up and it's just like spinning on the ceiling. It's like, whoa, dude, this is terrible. Yeah.
Okay, so do you know how they did this?
Well, I mean, pulling the bed is pretty straightforward. You have a hole in the bed and you yank the talent.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff in
but
there.
the blood?
No, that I don't know. Is it like did they use the upside down the room again? I guess
they used the rotating room again with
that
the
makes
camera
sense.
attached.
And they just dumped it down then.
Well, yeah, so they dumped it down through the hole in the bed.
Okay.
And they did just use red water because actual like stage blood wouldn't work for this.
They needed hell of a lot.
It didn't have the right consistency, I think. Yeah. So they're like, but they were supposed to turn the room in one direction so that once it flew out of the bed, it would like splash down the walls. But they accidentally turned it the wrong direction.
Oh, really?
And so instead of it like gushing down the walls, it went out of the room through the open like area where the camera and equipment was.
Oh my goodness.
And there were all these, there were of course like exposed wires and electrical sockets.
Yeah.
And the power went out.
Oh God.
Nobody was hurt, but the power went out. So
you know what though? When you're on the set with all that gear, that is, that's a definite risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it worked, and hopefully, gladly, no one
It looked
hurt
great,
or died. So,
but
yeah, it looked awesome. I love that scene.
But
That's
sadly,
it's one of maybe my favorite scene from the movie. I think
it's a good moment. Unfortunately, it is the moment where we lose Johnny Depp.
we do lose.
We lose baby Johnny Depp, and that's really sad.
I'm thinking of. I'm missing names for him again now. We're going to name him every time.
Oh, I can't even think of another one right now.
We're missing Mort Rainey.
He's been in so many things.
Mort Rainey is his character's name from Secret Window.
We're missing. Was Johnny Depp in Benny and June? Was he Benny in Benny and June?
He was.
There we go. We got to do Benny.
Okay.
That's a throwback.
That's an
there.
old one. Yeah, old 90s
That's
movie.
a throwback.
Sure.
So of course, because Nancy's dad is a cop, he's called to the scene of Glen's death. So he goes to his house. So he's right across the street from Nancy.
Oh, how about the scene where the paramedics show up and they have the stretcher, and he's like, "You're not going to need a stretcher. You're going to need a mop."
Yeah.
You're like,
You're gonna need a mop.
Oh, that's bad.
So Nancy gets on the phone with her dad, and she tells him she'll bring Fred Krueger out, and Dad needs to come and arrest him. And the dad agrees, but it's like very obvious he still doesn't believe her. Mm-hmm. So he goes to do his job.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds not so.
It's pretty crazy.
So he goes to do his job, and Nancy in the real world uses her book learning and makes a bunch of booby traps.
Been reading. Again, I'm reminded of Home Alone. I'm sorry, I just can't help it when I see
This is
them.
true. This is accurate. Yes.
I feel like this is the second time we've referenced a movie we saw with traps, and I thought of Home Alone. I guess I don't know.
Well, what was the other movie where you thought of that?
What was that?
Was,
what did we see? Oh, damn it! I can't remember now.
You're next.
Okay, was it? All right.
You're next.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because she's the survivalist and she sets
That's
booby
right.
traps. Yeah.
That's right.
But Nancy makes her booby traps, and in the real world, like before she goes to sleep.
Yep.
And as her dad goes to see the scene of Glen's death, she goes to bed and she prays before setting a timer on her wristwatch, so it will wake her up.
Don't you love her old 80s digital wristwatch? It's pretty hot, right?
Oh, yes. It's so 80s. It's so great.
Was it like Casio or Timex, I guess, back in the day, right?
It looks like one of those. Yeah. I don't know if it had a brand on it, but it definitely looked like a Casio or a Timex.
Love it.
It was not the oh-so-hip Swatch.
No.
Let's just say that.
But I don't think swatches could do that.
Swatches might have been a little later. And they didn't have alarms because they were just hand watches.
I'm really going to drop one on you. Do you remember synchronized swatches from Parker Lewis Can't Lose?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Swatches. I'm sorry. I went
that
really
was a drop.
deep on that. Here's a question. I've never worn one. Do people still wear, like, I know they wear nice. I might wear a nice watch, like maybe a wedding or something. No one wears like a digital, like, do they even make those watches anymore?
Digital watches? Well, people wear like Apple watches and stuff.
Okay, right, Apple. But does anyone still wear like a digital watch? Does that, you think?
My husband did for a while.
Okay.
Because he would use it for timer stuff for like running and stuff.
Okay.
But his was still like a specific to being a runner one. Like it had special things in it for a runner. So
I'm just curious if anyone
I don't
has those
know.
anymore.
Yeah, I think
the person who did it would have to be like in their 60s or 70s at this point.
Yeah, I think it stopped being a major thing anymore, unless you're wearing a smart watch.
Yeah, an Apple
or
Watch.
you have like a really fancy watch.
I've never worn. I've always, or now my phone is my watch, or I'm always near. Yeah, I've never had a watch. So that's interesting though.
Yeah, I have a smartwatch, but since the pandemic, I haven't been wearing it because where am I going? Nowhere.
You don't need to know what time it is.
Yeah, I don't. I have my phone with me all the time.
Who cares? Right, there you go.
Who cares?
You have a clock.
You know what time it is? You know what time it is? It's time to make a podcast.
Yes, you have a clock in your car, so yeah, you don't need a watch.
Yeah, you don't need one so much anymore. Okay, so Nancy's made her booby trap. She's gone to bed and she said her prayer. Her "Now I lay me down to sleep" prayer. She set the timer on her wristwatch.
And of course, I'm listening to it. I'm thinking of Metallica the entire time. Of course.
Of course you are.
Yes.
You would be.
Enter.
And she, in her dream, she walks down the stairs and into the basement. And she looks for the knife glove, but it's gone. She finds another set of stairs and she goes down them, and Freddy's like laughing out all around her. And she calls out to him and she continues deeper into the like warren of pipes and hallways. So she's down in that like dream boiler room now.
I like your word warren there, by the way.
Warren, yeah, like a rabbit warren, because it is. It's like it's all windy and there's little paths.
I don't know where I heard that once, but yeah, a rabbit warrener. That's such an interesting
warren,
phrase to me.
Yeah,
or warren. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because it's all like windy and there's like different paths that you can take, and you
get an A for vocabulary.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I got an A on my SAT, even though you can't get an A on your SAT.
I was going to say, I think it's numbers. Isn't it not grades?
It's numbers, yeah, but whatever.
My numbers were very small.
Pulling out my SAT words this recording. She finds Tina's crucifix and she finds Glenn's headphones, like down there in the basement boiler room.
His
thing.
lair.
Yeah, his lair. Ooh, see, you pulled out a good one there.
It's all right.
And then Freddy appears behind her and she jumps to get away and she lands in her front yard. Like she jumps like off the edge of a landing and like ends up in her front yard. And Freddy shows up and she's wrestling with him and her alarm goes off and she wakes up and she doesn't see him. So she thinks she didn't bring him out. But she did. It worked. He pops up next to her bed and he's there. And she calls out the window for her dad, but he's not like there. And the cop who's in the yard, like watching for stuff is like, oh, there's the crazy girl again. Oh,
Right.
oh.
Right.
And then Freddy breaks out of her room and he gets walloped in the gut with a hanger she rigged. And he comes after her again. So she's gotten out of the room. He comes out of the room. He gets walloped in the gut. He comes after her again and he trips over a wire. And then he chases her to the basement and she lights him on fire. Yes. And he chases her up the stairs and then he like falls down and he starts back up again. And that whole part, like when he gets set on fire and then he goes up the stairs, falls down, starts back up again, was shot in one take with 7 cameras at the same time.
I could see it, yeah. You would need to.
And at that time, it was the most elaborate fire scene that had ever been filmed.
Yeah, you got to have the coverage to be able to do that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So they had 7 cameras going at once.
You
don't want to like do the fire like thing any more than you have to because it's a big effect. It's hard.
That's like a planning, and then like just crossing your fingers and saying a prayer and just saying action.
Yes,
hoping
yes.
it works.
It's like in action movies where they
man.
have to like blow up the car and it's like, well, we get to do this once. We better get it right.
It's like, I love Apocalypse Now. Who doesn't? But, the scene where they come over that village and they're playing the Ride of the Valkyries and they bomb the village out. And I remember just thinking when I was younger too, watching it, like, oh my God, like this had to have been once. I mean, how would you have twice? I found out though, they had actually 2 takes to do that. I don't know how in the world they had 2 takes for that, but they did. But yeah, that's one of those scenes where you just gotta prep like you've never prepped and just you've got to execute.
Well, it's funny because you think of Apocalypse Now and I think of Tropic Thunder.
There you go.
When they're like getting ready for the big like explosion scene, and then he thinks he saw the cue to do it, and he like presses the buttons and goes, and he says, "I just made Mother Nature piss her pantsuit." But it was early, like it wasn't in the right time, and so of course nothing was going right at that point in the movie. But
having the 7 cameras, having the coverage is key too because. Maybe you miss something on one, maybe something happens, but you're able to catch it or something else. So, yeah, well done. They did it. It worked.
Yeah, and you want to get a few different angles so you can cut between them. Yeah, definitely.
You need to have footage. You need to have coverage, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So then Nancy's dad finally shows up, right? And he and his cops break down the front door because the mom has, like, earlier she had locked it so that, like, you couldn't even unlock it from the inside. Mm-hmm. And Freddy's attacking Nancy's mom in the master bedroom, and he's still on fire, and Dad throws a blanket over him to put the fire out, and when he removes it, Freddy is gone, and Nancy's mother sinks into the bed in a bright blue light. And this is where the movie goes dumb.
Okay, I'm going to follow you here.
From Nancy's mother sinking is where I'm like...
That was weird. I'm with you on that. It's a little odd. Okay. Yep.
So Nancy's dad leaves and Freddy rises out of the bed and Nancy tells him it's too late because now she knows it's all just a dream. She tells him when she wants her mom back.
He pops up and he has the sheet on his head though, right? He rises up behind her or something like that. Is that the scene?
I think he has the sheet on his head first, yeah.
I like that. That's a cool little like
Yeah,
trick.
so actually
like
this little moment, I think, where she's like I want my mom and friends back. I know you're not real. It's just a dream. And he like lunges at her and disappears. Mm-hmm. Like that moment's good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But then she's outside and her mom is like, she goes downstairs and her mom is like, I don't even need to drink anymore. Yeah. And her friends show up in the convertible and she like hops in and then the convertible roof comes up and it's red and green striped and everyone starts screaming and Freddy's arm comes through the front door and pulls Nancy's mom into it. Yes. Like Okay,
and that's a terrible dummy they used to pull through the window. It looked awful, by the way.
Yeah, it looked silly. But so originally, apparently, Wes Craven wanted the movie to have a happy ending. He wanted
That's right.
He wanted Nancy to say, like, I know what you are. You're just a dream. You're not real. And, like, take the power back and win. But Robert Shea, the producer,
Take the Power Back. Great song by Public Enemy, by the way.
Oh, there we go. We got another music reference in there.
We have to.
But the producer, Robert Shea, wanted to leave it open for sequels.
Okay.
Which I think is why that whole part is so dumb.
Okay. And I think I'm with you. I think it went a little sideways with that scene where after the mother dies thing too.
I think the mom sinking in the bed is a little weird too. That's just
it's weird. It's weird.
But the whole pulling her. I don't even mind the convertible when the roof comes up and they scream. Like, I don't even mind that. But Freddy's arm then coming through the door and pulling Nancy's mom into it. Like, it's just silly.
It's kind of like, did it really happen? Is any of this happening? What's really going on here? Like, I'm kind of confused, sort of.
Right. And like when she first,
we're not sure what's going on.
When she first has her like taking her power back moment with him, and she goes downstairs, it's like, oh, so everything else was the dream, and all her friends are still alive.
There you go.
She was the only one in the dream the whole time, and that makes sense. And then if you make it another, oh no, they're still in a dream.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a little ridiculous.
It's convoluted, and it's for as entertaining and good as the movie is, which we're not destroying it.
Oh no, the movie like 90% of this movie is fantastic.
The ending is wonky, and you and I are not the only ones that think that way. So believe me.
It's just a little weird.
I'm with you.
So I have a little more trivia I can share about it.
Okay, what you got?
Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street cost about $1.8 million to make.
Okay.
Which was more back then than it is now, but still.
It made a heck of a lot more than that, didn't it?
Well, it made that back in its opening weekend.
I would say that was probably
just in its opening weekend.
Sounds about right.
And then how'd they do the stuff for the glove? Okay. The sparking glove, when it sparks, they did that by attaching the glove to a car battery.
Oh, I was saying, did they put like flint on it or something where you scrape it and it pops? Maybe you're like that. Okay.
I don't know, but they attached it to a car battery. So
that's
it
a great
idea. From that.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
And then the scraping noise was a steak knife that was scraped on the underside of a metal chair.
Well, I think didn't we have, wasn't this part of our trivia for Bill and I on our episode of audio? Didn't you ask us about
that? Was the
Freddy
snick
Krueger?
Snick? Yeah, that they did. That was
It was something related.
The
to this
snick was scalpels or something.
Okay.
I think, and then the scraping noise was like a knife.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
the car battery thing. That's a simple idea, sure.
Yeah, and I saw a few different things about who Robert Englund sort of based his performance on, but I loved this one, that he based his physicality apparently on Klaus Kinski as Nosferatu in Werner Herzog's Nosferatu the Vampire.
Okay.
Or the Vampire.
The Vampire.
The Vampire. So yeah, I thought that was neat.
No, that's Vampire. That's Vampyre, right? Vampire.
Yes, which we're gonna have to do that one because that's a classic. We're gonna have to do that on the show at one point.
This is so random. I just thought of it in my head for some reason because it's almost that time. For beer drinkers out there, Great Lakes Brewing around Halloween time makes a beer called Nosferatu. It is a red lager. It's like 8% alcohol. They sell it in 4-packs. I don't know if they still make it. I haven't had it in forever.
Ooh, I like red lagers. They're pretty good.
Pretty interesting brew.
So another little bit of trivia. Nancy's house has a blue door in this movie. Mm-hmm. In all of the sequels, it has a red door.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned the house, too. So I've made my pilgrimage to Pasadena where they did Halloween, and I've walked around L.A. a couple places. But I didn't get to go to the 1428 Elm Street, which is in downtown L.A., and I meant to go. It's right behind the Sunset Strip, I believe. And it is a pilgrimage thing. It's a house. It's a real house. And if you get a chance to go to L.A., Google it. You can go find it very easily. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Let me see. I have a couple more. So when Sean S. Cunningham was making Friday the 13th, which came out in 1980, right? Wes Craven helped him out and like did a few shots for him. So Cunningham directed a few shots near the end of the production of this movie.
That's cool.
For Craven when they had like a bunch of units working all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's just like, I don't know, that to me like speaks of how the whole horror community is, right? There's so much collaboration. There's so much like uplifting each other.
Yes.
Which sounds silly because we're all like raw horror, killing things, but we're it's a very like
we're making art here, people.
Yeah, it's a very helpful like kind of loving community in a weird way.
And it's awesome because it's great that they do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and of course we all know there was Freddy versus Jason, which proves that this film takes place in the same universe as the Friday the 13th films.
I'll leave my thoughts on Freddy versus Jason for another day, but.
Yes, we'll have to talk about that another time. So yeah, overall, I really liked this movie. The ending was a little clunky, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest.
Okay, yeah, they're fun. Freddy definitely evolves.
Yeah, I did expect more quips from him because that's what I think of him as. So I'm looking forward to that in the other sequels, like seeing him. Be a little more of a fun character.
He becomes a bit of a showman, kind of a caricature of himself almost. But yeah, you'll get more of that. They're all pretty entertaining. There's a bunch of them. There's a lot of them. My favorite, of these is the Halloweens. I love all of them. The Friday the 13th are good. And these are all good. There's 8, 9, 10. There's a million of these movies.
Yeah,
they're all pretty good. I think you'll like them. Friday the 13th 3D. Nightmare on Elm Street is in 3D, one of them. I can't remember which one it is. But, yeah, they're all entertaining. Robert Englund's a great actor.
He's fantastic.
And he loves being Freddy. I mean, he loves it. He absolutely loves being Freddy Krueger, which is so cool.
Which is so refreshing and nice to see that, like, a lot of actors, like, that those earlier roles, they, like, shun them and they don't want to be known for them.
Nope,
but
he is all
I love that he
Freddy
embraces
Krueger.
it and it's just like, like, I did this thing and it's awesome and it's fun and it's cool and I love it.
He loves it. Okay, so The Simpsons does a great job of spoof of the Shining and of and Bart Simpson's Dracula, which were great. So they do a Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace, which is where they live. And it is hilarious. Groundskeeper Willie is Freddy Krueger. It is so funny. Please go YouTube it or watch if you have the collection of the Treehouse of Horror. Please watch it. It's freaking hilarious. They did such a good job with the spoof of The Shining, Dracula, and now this. I love it. It's so great. Remake, go check it out. It's worth a watch for the backstory stuff. One thing I was going to mention, which I still want to this day, I'm never going to pay for this. There are a pair of shoes out there, okay? Nike made them. Listeners, if you want to help me out here and buy them for me, please, by all means.
Wait, tell them what size you are.
You can get me 9.5s.
There we go.
So Nike made a pair of like Krueger Elm Street shoes, right? And they were like very rare. And they have like the Nike swoosh with blood on them. They have like the red and green. The sole of the shoe is Freddy's like burned skin, right, of his face.
Ooh.
Like they're legit. Like these shoes, you couldn't buy them in a store. They're like a massive collector's item. And they're on eBay constantly because the seller can't sell them because he tries to sell them for $7,000-$8,000.
Oh, geez.
But they're
okay. So maybe a lot of listeners will have to pitch in. I don't know if we have enough listeners to pitch in and get you those shoes, but
start a GoFundMe and just make it happen.
It's the Matt needs Freddy Krueger shoes GoFundMe.
I would wear them to Monster Manias. I'd wear them on like Halloween. I'd wear them on like Friday the 13th, which that doesn't make sense, I guess. But yeah, you can get them. They're actually really cool looking. I would leave them in a closet. I would hardly ever wear them because they're so cool. But they exist, and I've always wanted these shoes. But you really can't. If you have cash to just throw away, then buy them. But no one does.
You
no
could
one has that.
always get like canvas sneakers and at least have the red and green stripes.
You got to get the Nike joints. These things are hot, and like for shoe collectors, there's got to be somebody out there that has them too.
For the sneakerheads.
Go check out eBay listing. I haven't looked at it in years, to be honest, but I guarantee if you look at it now, you will see a pair on there, I'm sure. And they had a counterfeit problem with them too, I think. But like they're a crazy collector's item. I'm surprised I'm surprised no one's tried to sell them at a Monster Mania for like a couple of grand. I've never seen them in person.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, so what else do we have to say about this movie besides we actually love it and it's great?
Well, it's about Friday the 13th. Why do I keep saying Friday the 13th?
I don't know.
I'm sorry. My goodness. My Nightmare on Elm Street. Didn't the Fat Boys make a rap song back in the day about Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Street? I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, we got to YouTube that one too. I think they did. They made a rap about it, and it's like something on Elm Street. And they shot the video like in the house, and it's like a spooky video, and it's such a goofy thing. But yeah, we got to look that up.
All right, we'll have to look that up. Okay, we'll have to look for that. Well, next up, our Halloween extravaganza continues with, surprise, surprise, Nightmare on Elm Street True, Freddy's Revenge.
Oh, yeah.
And that, you guys remember, we're doing weekly right now, so that will be out next week. So please remember to subscribe to the podcast so you get all our other Freddy goodness. Rate and review us on iTunes or wherever you're listening so more people can find us. And send us all your movie suggestions, your thoughts on the movies we've watched so far at thescarymovieproject@gmail.com. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Scary Movie Project. Peace out.
Good night, Canada.
The Scary Movie Project podcast is produced by Tara Garwood and Matt Lolich. Learn more at thescarymovieproject.com.